Hello. So this tank is 6 months old, and I think it was time to make a kind of assessment of how the tank is. And this video is going to be, unfortunately, mostly bad news. All sorts of bad news, not only about the tank, but let's start with the bad news and try to finish with the good ones. So, the first bad news is that there are now less for fish in the tank. The first thing that it happened that I noticed was that the two-wheeler gobies that lived here underneath this rock, which is protected by zoanthids and tricordias, simply disappeared. I mean, it's possible that they are somewhere in the tank, but they disappeared some weeks ago. They may be somewhere beneath the anemone cave. It has lots of space there. I don't know, but I haven't seen them in weeks, so I think most likely they are dead. Why? Well, if I don't know if they are dead or not, I don't know why they disappeared, but the thing that I suspect is that they have these bad neighbors living above them, which are the flame hawkfish. And the flame hawkfish hate small gobies that dwell on the sand. They have their name hawkfish for a reason, and they dart down like hawks, full speed, when they see the gobies. I should have researched that much better. I didn't know that they hated these gobies so much. So the gobies never left the cave. They only darted out to get some food very occasionally and got back in. But it's the only reason I can find that they both disappeared. Very strange. Maybe someone managed to expel them from their cave, because I saw their cave much more open than it usually was. Well, continuing on the gobies, you can see here I have just one diamond goby now. It's the female. The male died. So what happened? One day I saw just the female out and about. They were always together. But she was moving tons of sand around the place where they slept. So I assumed that it was breeding behavior. I'm not sure if it was or not. Probably not. I'm not sure. So, what happened was that was that after a few days, I saw him, and I saw him because the female was chasing him, but he was not looking good at all. And so I managed to get him out, put him in the sump so that he could recover, but the next day he was dead. Well, the thing is that I had this diamond goby with me for over 4 years. And when I got him, he was already an adult. So I guess most likely he reached the end of his normal lifespan, because these gobies don't live for a long time. So I prefer to have fish in pairs when they like to be in pairs. I think they lead much fuller, happier lives. So it's also very sad. Well, I said that there are 4 fish less, so we have the less two-wheeler gobies, the male diamond goby, and as you can see, the male flame angel is also alone. One day, out of the blue, the female angel appeared covered in white spots, and I mean completely covered. The skin also filled with the white dust, so I really panicked because I thought it was velvet. I managed to get her out on the next day only. I gave her a freshwater bath and I put her in a hospital tank with chloroquine phosphate, and she appeared to look much better after an hour or so, but just the same, the next day she was dead. Um, since then, I've been looking very closely how the fish look, and I haven't seen any signs of white spots. So I don't think it is velvet. Right here in the cave there's now the smaller beta, and that's a good news because I think they paired up. Sometimes I see the big beta and the small beta, although they are different species. One is an altivalis, which is the small beta with here, and the bigger one is an argus. But I think they paired up. I have seen them together a couple of times. So this happened, these 4 losses in a very short period of time. And it's the thing I hate the most about this hobby. And I think this shouldn't be called a hobby at all, for many reasons. But starting with that, we're playing God with animals, lots of animals' lives. So I don't think this should be called a hobby. That should be another word. English is not my first language, so I'm not sure what that word should be. So these are the darkest times of having a reef tank. And I remember maybe 30 years ago reading a book called Immortality by Milan Kundera, a Czech writer. And in that book there was this old lady that whenever she went to the streets, she would carry a forget-me-not in front of her nose, and she would walk the streets just looking at the forget-me-not and trying to not look at anything around her. So in a way, when I was trying to choose a name for this reef tank, I ended up choosing Reverie Reef. And I was also thinking about the possibility of calling it Forget-me-not Reef. But the Forget-me-not is because this reef tank for me, it's a bit what that Forget-me-not was to that old lady. I see the world quickly going into a bad place, which I'm not sure it will be. I'm just absolutely sure it will be a bad place. I don't think that we'll reach that bad place conveniently around 2100. I think it will happen within the next 10 to 20 years. I'll be very surprised if it doesn't. Because even people that are informed about what's going on with climate and the degradation of the world in general, they have a watered down vision of how things are proceeding, and I don't think people are focusing on what really will bring us down. If you look up a chart on Arctic sea ice volume, you can have an idea when the chain of events that will bring us down as a civilization will happen. And what people think, okay, we won't have polar bears in the Arctic. Yeah, we won't have polar bears in the Arctic, but what people forget is that the Arctic, in a way, is the air conditioned of the world. It's much more than that. But we know from geological records what the weather patterns, sort of how they will change as soon as we don't have Arctic ice. Of course, the difference between the Arctic and the equator will be much, much smaller. And what that brings is that a completely changed weather patterns. And that won't be something that will happen decades ahead. That is something that happens, well, in fact, it's a bit already started happening, but will be extremely severe afterwards. If you take, for example, a glass of water and put some ice on top, and you put a thermometer, you can see that the water under the ice stays at a very stable temperature as long as there is a slither of ice on top. As soon as the ice disappears, the temperature in the glass starts to equalize extremely fast with the environment around, because the energy that is needed to melt a cube of ice is the same energy that is needed to warm that same volume of water to 80 degrees Celsius. So, as soon as there is no ice in the Arctic, all the energy that is going to melt the ice is going to warm the Arctic Ocean. So the chain of events will grow drastically faster in terms of warming up not only of the region but of the whole, especially the northern hemisphere. And I don't think we will be able to grow crops at scale the way we do now once that happens. And judging by history, I don't think we will be killed by hot weather and floods. No, we will die by our own hands in wars. There will be hundreds of millions of refugees, because people don't die peacefully in a place. There will be fight for resources, and I don't know how things will play out. I know that the human population will be severely cold. I don't know. I don't see a way. And while this is all happening, conditions around us get worse. So the next 10 to 20 years are going to be interesting in the worst ways. So I think to the few people that watch this video, maybe this may be a wake-up call. The reason I got this reef tank, the reason I got the piano, is because I see all this coming. And I don't see this coming for the future generations. I see this coming in my lifetime. I worked a bit in oceanography. In university I studied math and computer science. I studied more math than some math courses and physics. And so I see what's happening. I see people paying attention to sea level rise, to heat waves, to hurricanes, and that's not what's going to get us. What's going to get us is our inability to grow food. More than half of what we eat is based on 3 crops: wheat, corn, and rice. And these 3 crops are going to take a big toll in the next few years due to the events that are going to happen in the Arctic. Of course, the first people to suffer will be the poor people, but it will get to all of us. I'm not sure how the civilization, how the society will cope with this scenario. It's extremely complex to predict. I know it will be horrible, and I know it will be in my lifetime. I'm 50 years old, 49, I'm almost 50 years old, and I made my peace with it in a way. If I was younger, I'm not sure I would be so, and on a personal level, so at peace with the situation I see coming. So this reef tank, in a way, was supposed to be that forget-me-not in front of my nose, but it's not. It's not fulfilling that job very well, because it also has a very ugly side to it, which is the death of the animals, and it's something I really hate. On a positive note, the new Tridacna, the Maxima, is hanging on. It arrived gaping, so I was not very happy about it. And now you see the angel is nipping the wig of the tuxedo urchin. And the tuxedo urchin, I got him, and it's the only thing that wasn't quarantined here. And maybe it's the reason that I lost the female angel and get white spot here. I don't know. I don't see any other explanation. Never saw white spots in this tank. and it's the last thing that entered the tank was the urchin. I just washed him and rinsed him 5 or 6 times in tank water, because I've read they couldn't bring parasites. Well, maybe I didn't wash him well enough, or maybe that assumption is not true. Another positive note, the Bengai cardinals, I managed to save over 20 from the tank. They're now in the refugium. I'm trying to feed them. Most of them I think are still alive. Let's see how it goes. And I think this tank, well, it's a very young tank. It's 6 months old. There are parts of the tank that are looking very grown. There are many parts that are still in frag size. Maybe in 2 years it will look much better. My idea is to have mainly the Acroporas. I have the green slimer in here, the kind of teal looking Acropora, making a kind of an S corridor toward the back behind the Magnifica. So maybe in the future get rid of that pillar with the bubble tips and the zinnias, and let the Acroporas grow back there, and also in the right corner let them get high above the Magnifica and behind the Magnifica. Other than that, there is a slight, well, little worse than slight algae problem, algae. That's the reason I got the urchin. But the algae problem is the cause is because I got used rock when I set up this tank, and that rock I think was loaded with phosphates. Because when I test the tank, I tested yesterday, nitrates are slowly going down. They are at 3, and phosphates are also naturally slowly going down. They are at 0.08. So I have some products that I can use when they go, if they go too low. So I'm not too worried about the algae. I pick them up from time to time, but I know it's a problem that I must let solve by itself. The tank is very young and it will get sorted. The sand is clean, the old rocks are mostly clean. So this was not a very good update. Let's hope things in the tank get better, because outside in the next decade or so, I warn you, it's not going to get better. What they say will happen in 2100 will happen in the next 10 to 20 years. I will be extremely and happily surprised if it doesn't. I won't be surprised if it happens sooner. Once again, thanks for watching.